Well, it's obviously tough to be getting back to business in Egypt, even as that country makes the push to get its banks reopened, to eventually get its markets to reopen. It's quite difficult and far from normal. That's why we're bringing in right now Angus Blair. He's from Beltone Financial. He runs Beltone's Cairo brokerage, you should know, handles 8% of the daily trading there. And so Angus obviously is very attuned to what's happening day to day with businesses on the ground. He's in London because he's unable to return to Cairo at the moment. Angus, what has changed? Why aren't you back in Cairo yet?
I'm planning to go back, Margaret, very soon, in a few days' time. The team has already gone back to work, so I've been directing them from here. And just a few days and I'll be back in Cairo, back home and up and running. But the team has been working. They've been working since Sunday, and in Cairo, London and Dubai, as well as New York.
And I know that you've been talking to and trying to get information from some of the companies that are trying to get back to work right now. How long is it going to take before we see full bank reopenings? I know they're open in just limited fashion right now. Before we see a real read on how much damage there has been done.
Well, Margaret, every day an increased number of banks have opened since Sunday, and more ATM branches have been opened out. So the banks are almost back to normal. Surprisingly, there hasn't really been a run on banks. We thought that there might be some bad news, and there doesn't seem to have been bad news yet. The stock market opening has been delayed until Sunday. I don't think it will be delayed any time after that. It'll open on Sunday. The Egyptian GDRs have been trading in London. They've been relatively strong so far this week. Again, surprisingly, actually, a few of them off today by a few percent. But all in all, it looks actually relatively stable. The Egyptian pound weakened a bit the last few days, but it strengthened a little today as the central bank intervened. But actually, it's quite interesting. It's been stronger than we might have feared at the worst of this.
But in your analysis that I've read through here, you think what was already problematic unemployment is going to get worse. Businesses are going to have to cut headcount further there. So that wouldn't necessarily lay the groundwork for calm.
Sure. I mean, you mentioned in the last question, which I didn't fully answer, so forgive me, but we're checking with all our companies in Egypt the last few days where they are and what's happening. Yeah. I'm not general inflation, unemployment we expect to rise a little bit, but not overly much. If there's stability in the next few weeks and you have incremental improvements in the security situation, I think that the hit that we're taking right now will only last a few weeks, and that the growth rate we were having, which is around 5.5%, we might be back on those sorts of levels by the summer. If that is the case, then we might see a little spike in unemployment and it'll come back down. But the worry for me, which you've mentioned before, Margaret, is inflation. Food price inflation running at 17%. So the new government has to really tackle the fundamental issues related to the problems of inflation within Egypt.
Right, and that's going to add to their own spending if they're going to have to further subsidize it, as the government has said they want to. You know, it's tough, Angus, to get a real read of what's happening on the ground for us as journalists because of the constraints put on our news gathering and the security situation in Egypt right now. Give me a sense from your colleagues how things are. I mean, how much visibility is there? How much security is there for business people?
Well, we've had some trading statements from companies, and many of them have been up and running since Sunday. Some of them, again, surprisingly near full capacity. It has been a problem, as you're saying, moving some people around. Some of that is due to the fear factor, and some of it absolutely in terms of logistics, because as more gas is put into the stations, more people are able to get around, but it's incremental steps. You're quite right to point out about the journalists. There's been an issue in Egypt. State television has been almost vilifying foreign media particularly, and that has created a problem in finding out what's happening on the ground. So what we're trying to do is to use our own team to find out from companies what's happening, what's the impact, and so far, again, the news hasn't been as bad as we would have thought. We'll come out with some more research in a day or two, hopefully giving you and Bloomberg and all our clients more information about what's happening and what fund managers can do to try to make make up their mind to when the stock market opens what they ought to be doing in terms of buying or selling or whatever their positions are in the marketplace.
Right. I mean, quick back of the envelope, the number that's thrown around is $310 million a day. Credit Agricole says that's the cost of the Egyptian economy. There's a lot of unbanked people, a lot of cash economy. A large part of that economy is cash. So how much damage do you think has been done?
Yeah, I worked out on the back of an envelope how that figure came to be. I think it's a very simple, exaggerated amount of money. I think in the very worst of it, that for a few days the economy might have been hit slightly more than that. But since then it's begun recovering pretty well. Food and goods and people are being able to move around more easily. Economic growth, I think, will pick up a little sooner than we had expected. But I think that what we'll see, we'll have a clearer picture by the end of this first full working week, going into the next working week.
Yeah, no, and we hope to hear from the government ministers we've been talking to by that time as well. Thank you very much, Angus, for giving us your read, and good luck getting back to Cairo.